Even though I know what's going to happen, don't expect any news on the announce a starting quarterback front.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. We will talk ground game. We'll talk secret weapons for Oregon this fall. How about that? I love that question. Big Ten against the SEC. Trivia's back. Fear not, Trivia's back. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. So we inch ever closer. 10 days. You are down to two hands. A moose on the golf course. Never something you want to see. But in the countdown to Oregon football, moose is good. So, Dante Moore has not officially been announced as Oregon's starting quarterback. And in the lead up to the opener against Montana State, I have zero, like Mark Baum in The Big Short. Zero! He said there was a 0 chance that subprime loans wouldn't default after 4%, something like that. He was right. But, his character already knew the answer. Anyway, so there's 0% chance, in my view. Look, all right, technically it's possible. I'll go 1% chance Dante Moore gets publicly announced as a starting quarterback going into next week. It's just not the way Dan Lanning operates. He is always, and I don't begrudge him for this, I get the sense sometimes there's some media folks out there that do. I'm not one of them. I'm really not. Dan Lanning is someone who keeps everything tight-lipped. He doesn't give a whole lot of answers. He's never going to do anything he doesn't feel like is going to benefit the program. And naming a starting quarterback, if for whatever his reasoning is, if he lands on the conclusion, I don't feel the need to name a starting quarterback, well then guess what? I'm not going to sit here and ask him to, because we also all know it's going to be Dante Moore. And I don't think Oregon's necessarily hiding the ball on this front. I'm sure if you ask Dan Lanning, Will Stein was talking about it recently, I'll get to his comments here in just a moment. He'd say, it's a good battle. These guys have been going at it. They've been doing good, right? All that coach speak sort of stuff. And then the Oregon football account puts out a post, plugging their Beats by Dre sponsorship, and Dante Moore has them on. Okay. Like quarterback battle. Like every now and then I'll be scrolling through Twitter and I'll see some accounts be like, oh, well, there's still a quarterback battle at Oregon. Could be. I like Austin Novosad. Any of you like Austin Novosad? That guy can be a Power 4 starter at quarterback one day. I firmly believe that. Novosad's probably the best backup quarterback that Oregon has had since Dan Lanning has arrived. Last year, Dante Moore was fresh off a season where he'd gotten a bit rattled and turned the ball over a bunch and was not as ready to play then as hopefully he is now and as I suspect he is now. And the year before, they had Ty Thompson in the fold. We saw how that went. That's Novosad is far and away the best situation they've been in there. And it's a good insurance policy. You never think about it until it's the most important thing in your life, and you better hope it delivers or things are going to go south. So I like Oregon's quarterback room going into this year. I really do. Luke Moga, of course, looked great in the spring game and is an incredibly good athlete. Wildcat, please. I'm trying to speak that into existence. If Luke Moga next Saturday takes a Wildcat snap in the red zone, I might retire that take. I might hang that take in the rafters of this show as one of my best of all time. So, and I ignore the bad ones. So, anyway, Dante Moore is going to be the starter. When you look at the episodes that have been released, particularly the most recent one of Under Construction, the docuseries, you see Dante Moore going with the first team guys. He's throwing the ball to Kenny and Sadiq. You see other guys throwing the ball from time to time. Who threw the ball to Kenny and Sadiq? Who's out there with the first team offensive line? Dante Moore. it's going to be Dante Moore. So Austin Novosad said, he was asked whether he'd done enough to earn the starting job and said something to the effect of, I feel like I've done everything I can. I feel like I've done good. That means Austin Novosad is feeling good going into the year based on that quote. That's a good thing. The really interesting quote is Will Stein compared Dante Moore to Teddy Bridgewater, not just because of the glove on his hand. And Teddy Bridgewater, who's long had the nickname Teddy Two Glove. I did a little bit of digging before I aired this particular take, and good thing I did. It turns out that usually helps out, which is why I always do it. So when I heard Will Stein compare Dante Moore to his former teammate for 2 years at Louisville, Teddy Bridgewater, of course I didn't interpret it as a shot, but I kind of thought, and I'm sure many of you did as well, if you've already seen the quote, or if you're hearing this now for the first time, you're probably thinking, Teddy Bridgewater's okay. I mean, he's had a good NFL career, bridge starter, high-end backup, low-end start. Has had some good Don't think of that comparison as NFL Teddy Bridgewater. Think of it as college Teddy Bridgewater. I'm going to read you Teddy's 3 seasons starting at Louisville, and you tell me if you'd take any of these from Dante Moore this year. Not as much the first one, but the last 2, that'd be cool. Season number 1, 13 games played, 64.5% completion, 2,129 passing yards, 14 touchdowns, 12 picks. I think that's worst case scenario for Dante Moore this year. Best case for this season is Teddy's year 2. 68.5% completion, over 3,700 yards, 27 touchdowns, 8 picks. If Dante Moore goes out and does that, that's beyond what my expectations are for him, quite frankly. I think he'll be in the 3,000 yards range, mid to high 20s in touchdowns, maybe the low 30s. And I hope he's able to keep the interceptions under 10. If he has that season, though, 3,718 yards, 27 and 8 picks, doing great. Dante's doing great. Oregon's doing great. Teddy Bridgewater's 3rd year in college football, 71% completion, 3,970 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 4 picks. We all know that potential for Dante Moore is in there. It is a good reminder we shouldn't expect that this year from him, though we should expect him to be good. But that final year, almost 4,000 yards passing, 31-4 touchdown interception ratio. Once Dante Moore gets a full season of starting under his belt, see how it looks this year? I think that's what he could do next season. I really, really do. This year, I think he probably winds up in between those 2 Teddy Bridgewater seasons. So that's a tremendous compliment to pay from Oregon's offensive coordinator, Will Stein. And when you think about his college career, lands a little bit differently than his NFL career, which has also been good. He's been in the NFL for quite a while. So if he can do that, thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit me up on Twitter, all of that good stuff. Secret weapons. Let's talk about them. First, this episode brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That is why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. If you have that one financial goal you've been wanting to reach for quite a long time, but you haven't been able to get there, Monarch is here to help you out. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONCollege. Check them out at monarchmoney.com. This episode also brought to you by our friends over at OpenPhone. If you're running a business, every single missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you needed a service. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need Open Phone, so you never miss an opportunity to connect with your customers. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications. Do you juggle 2 phones to keep your business calls and your personal calls separate? Open Phone solved that instantly. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox. No more who's handling this, who's on top of that. No. Consolidate it all with Open Phone. See why over 60,000 businesses trust Open Phone. They're offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedoncollege. That's openphone.com/lockedoncollege. Openphone.com/lockedoncollege. They'll even port over your existing numbers for free. Open Phone. No missed calls, no missed customers. All right, I've got my second segment sip, and I'm so fired up for this next one. So, mailbag questions, Spencer scale of agreement, trivia questions, send them all via YouTube comments, Twitter, become a Locked On Ducks Insider. That's the easiest way. You can get a free 14-day trial. Link in the description below. Bobby asks about secret weapons. Who could be Oregon's secret weapons this year? This took a little bit of thinking. There was one name in particular that popped into my head. Toby Hastrup keeps getting a lot of praise along the defensive line. 4-star true freshman, coming off the edge, just gets rave reviews for being a physical freak. Is an international recruit from London originally, guy who has not played a lot of football in his life, but appears to be picking it up quickly. Here's where my mind went to first, because that's a name that's gotten tossed around by players and coaches so many times it's become hard to ignore at this point. On the flip side of the coin, that defensive line has got so many guys, so many dudes. And I think when you use the term secret weapon, Oregon, it's not Oregon specific. I don't know why I said Oregon there. That was like a subconscious verbalization or something. Anyway. For Oregon. That's what I meant to say. But it applies to any team. I think you're thinking the offensive side of the ball. So I did think about Noah Whittington as a secret weapon of sorts. But then I thought, well, is Noah Whittington really a secret? Can he be employed enough to fit this category? Like, I don't know exactly what classifies as a secret weapon for Oregon this year. Kenyon Sadiq is not sneaking up on anybody. Mekhi Hughes is a preseason second-team All-American. So is Dylan Thieneman and Mateo Uyunglele. They're on the preseason All-America teams. Those guys are not sneaking up on anybody. But a secret weapon, let me throw a couple of names at you. And I think this is mostly going to be on the offensive side of the ball. But I'm going to start with a name that several of you, see if you can pick up the context clues and see how this is going to be as I explain this out. Several of you have asked questions about this guy before. Offensive player. He's been around for a while. I've gotten a question in the past about him changing positions. And he has not had a significant role in the Oregon offense this year. He looked like he was going to have one a season ago, and then the injury bug caught him. Kyler Casper's a name that pops into my head when you say secret weapons, because this is not a guy who's been featured heavily in any of his 3 seasons before. He's going into year 4, so we know he's physically ready. If you watched Under Construction last week, you saw that he was at the leadership retreat, which in Dan Lanning's own words was a collection of guys who aren't necessarily leaders but have the ability to be leaders on the football team. And the reason I put him in the secret weapon capability range is because he's 6'5", he runs and can jump. There aren't that many of those guys. Kenyon Sadiq is 6'4". Casper's like 6'5", 6'6". But he plays out on the perimeter. Sadiq, of course, Sadiq can line up on the perimeter too. He can line up literally anywhere on the field and have success. That's why he's awesome. But I don't know that teams are going to be able to have any film, at least early in the year, on Kyler Casper if suddenly Oregon takes some downfield shots. Malik Benson, for the same reason, popped into my head here as, hey, this is someone who could absolutely get unleashed on defenses across Oregon's schedule this year that no one was really talking about. You know, Benson is a guy who, frankly, I have heralded, under-heralded, not heralded as much. I don't know exactly what phrase I'm going for here, but I'm recording late at night tonight, so my brain's all over the place. It's been a long day. I traveled. Anyway, so, you know, Benson is a transfer who I don't have high expectations for. I don't look at him as, oh my gosh, he needs to be Evan Stewart from last year. He's a veteran receiver, former highly rated recruit, was at a big school. No, I look at him and say, anything you get from him is a plus, but do you need him to be a major contributor on the offensive side of things? No, I don't. I don't think you need him to be that because there's legitimate wide receiver depth. You know, I heard Josh Pate recently, one of you asked me about this. He was talking about Oregon's receiver room and said, boy, without Evan Stewart, I don't know if they have the wide receiver depth. I get why he'd say that, because you don't have proven guys in the wide receiver room. You just have a lot of on-paper talent that has to go out and prove it. I get why he'd say that as a National College Football Show host. The reason Decorian Moore doesn't fit into the secret weapons conversation is he's number one receiver in the class. You don't have college tape on him yet, but he's not sneaking up on anybody. So another one I will throw out there is not one name in particular, but a number 3 running back. Maybe it's Jay Harris. Maybe it's Dier Hill. Maybe it's Dink Riggs. Maybe it's Jaden Lamar. And I don't think Lamar's got, you know, a trait. Like, he's solid, don't get me wrong. I don't think he has a trait that will allow him to be special enough to be considered, you know, a secret weapon that gets unleashed and starts making a bunch of big impact plays. Like, no, he's solid. He's like a little bit thicker. Travis Dye doesn't have quite the agility, but he's solid. Hero of the Boise State game last year, Jaden Lamar, forever and always. So those are the guys I'd say. And of course, I can't finish this conversation and not talk about Luke Moga, because no one's expecting Moga to have a role, but once he takes a red zone snap this year and runs it in, suddenly defensive coordinators are going to have one more thing to prepare for. I'd be really, really here for that. So, yeah, let me know your secret weapons. If you want to throw some out there on defense, okay, I think it's more applicable to offense. If you think I missed anybody, that's a secret weapon. Secret weapon. Zach Grace is the name. Anyway, one of my Locked On Ducks insiders out there said, hey, Spencer, hope you're having a great morning. I did have a great morning. Wanted to get your thoughts on the show about the potential that this Oregon team could scheme some of their early games like the 2023 Michigan team that seemed like they only threw the ball 10 to 15 times a game to not only not overload Dante Moore with essentially new starting receivers, but with said receivers not heavily rely on them early on as they see a larger role. Don't get me wrong, the talent's there, but the production might not be, as I said, i.e. a Ty Thompson situation. Receiver and quarterback are very different there. I can see Kenyon Sadiq being the leading receiver by a wide margin this season. It'd be the first time that's ever happened, but if ever there was a year for a tight end to lead Oregon in receiving yards, this would be the year. You lose your veteran, you lose another potential contributor in Jurion Dickey for an indefinite amount of time, and Sadiq is tight end 1 and a total freak of an athlete. So, yeah, he's going to get the ball a lot, and I can't wait for that. That Michigan team, you know, they had J.J. McCarthy at quarterback, future first-round pick, mostly because he's big, fast, and has a big arm, not because he was a great quarterback necessarily. I think he was good, but he was not great. He didn't put up huge numbers. I don't think Will Stein is going to change his philosophy just to protect Dante Moore and the receivers a little more. This would fall, if they did run it more, which I could see them doing, I think it would fall more into the camp of easing Dante into the fold than easing the receivers into the fold. Like, receivers, one of the easiest positions on the field on either side to go from high school to college or to Purdue. I'm not saying it's easy. It is nothing. Nothing in football in the Big Ten is easy, but it's one of the easier ones. It's one of the more translatable positions right away for young guys to contribute. So Yeah, I don't think Oregon is going to go, go be what Seiko has said Penn State could be this year. He said, hey, Penn State could be 2023 Michigan. We've got 2 NFL running backs, a great offensive line, and a quarterback who, we don't want to rely on necessarily, but is still good and can make plays when called upon, and will be a first-round pick because of physical traits. Yeah, they do have all those similarities to that 2023 Michigan team. Oregon, on the other end, does not, and Will Stein, with 2 different quarterbacks, has had a lot of success. And yeah, there might be some bumps in the road and growing pains for Dante Moore early in the season, but I'm going to tag a 2 on the Spencer's scale of agreement here that, you'll see games where Dante Moore only throws the ball 15 times. Will Stein has too many RPO tags into the run game to allow for that to happen, and quarterbacks often have an instinct to pull that ball out. Certainly, I think Bo and Dylan did plenty of times, which I understand, but I don't think there's going to be that big of a change in, the way the offense looks or what they're trying to accomplish. There'll just be a change in how they perform, or hopefully not, and that, we hope the offense is just a seamless transition from last year. But, Dante Moore throwing the ball 12 times in a game, no, I can never see that happening. If he has to throw it that few times again, he might get benched. Yeah. Will Stein's track record with passing offenses in the last 2 years, way too good for that. Another SSA coming up on the show, Big Ten, SEC, and how Oregon ties into all of that. First, this episode brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason is already heating up, and college football isn't far behind. It literally starts this Saturday. Whether you've got your eye on big-name quarterbacks or breakout running backs, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in the game. It's easy to play. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. So if you think Joe Burrow's popping off, you take him over. If you think Saquon Barkley's getting held in check, you take him under. Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, I'd take him under a lot this year. You can bet on all of them over at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks, run your game. And this episode brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Plus, if you want to bet futures in college football on Oregon or anybody else in the country, you can do that. You've got Heisman odds, national title odds, conference title odds. Individual games can be wagered upon all over the country, Oregon and beyond. So visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Future Day is one day, August 26th, and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. All right, love this question from GoDuck777. I was just watching the Locked On show. The guy covering Purdue said it doesn't matter about preseason polls. By the way, the perfectionist in me, polls is P-O-L-L-S, not P-O-L-E-S. That would be like the North Pole or South Pole or a barbershop pole. Anyway, I couldn't disagree more when it comes to the SEC bias. Playing 8 conference games and most playing cupcakes, that extra win for all of them across the board helps them stay in the top 25. It also makes it harder for them to drop out because of the perception of them playing in a tough conference. The Big Ten only having 6 teams makes it harder for us to move up and easier for them to move up. When we beat each other, half our teams take an extra loss. They shouldn't rank teams until after week 3. This would help avoid the bias somewhat. What's your SSA on this? Thanks again, brother. I love the show. Appreciate you, man. So I am in agreement that preseason polls do matter, because this is a perception-based sport. You don't have to like that. You just have to understand that that is how it is, and we're not changing that anytime soon, and we don't know what the playoff is going to even look like next year. I have long been a proponent of SEC bias my whole life, as a matter of fact. I have always said it is real. It is also incredibly warranted, because these teams are better than everybody else. once NIL and the portal came to college football, we've got a couple of years of data to prove that that is not the case. The SEC champion, this is just one example of several I could cite. In 2012, Notre Dame, with Manti Te'o, and that team had the legendary goal line stand against Stanford. They went 12-0. They went to the BCS National Championship game. They played Alabama, champions of the SEC. I want to make sure I get the score right. It was 42-14. Okay? That was the final score. In that era, the SEC champ was usually just better. And there wasn't a lot other conferences could do. And some craziness had to happen, such as the kick six the following year, which led to Auburn making the national championship game against Florida State instead of Alabama, perhaps. Maybe Alabama goes on to win. But that Florida State team was really good. They had Jameis Winston at quarterback, and then they were 29-0 at one point with Jameis, and then they lost. Who'd they lose to? Oh, yeah, that's right. I was there, 59-20. Gosh, that was a great day. Anyway, so the SEC champ was not just usually better than everyone else, not all the time, but usually, but they were usually more physical. Last year, the SEC champion, Georgia Bulldogs, got bullied in the trenches by Notre Dame. They got out-physicaled and out-coached. Neither of those things used to happen. This feels to me like a new era of college football. So something I've talked about over on Locked On College Football is that the biggest storyline for this season is, will the SEC return to the national championship game? They've missed it 2 years in a row. That literally has not happened for over 2 decades. If you're going to try and tell me it's a coincidence that it's coincided with NIL becoming legal and the portal being a reality, yeah, I am not going to buy that. You will not sell me a bridge in Brooklyn. So I agree with you that SEC bias has been out there for a while. I agree the late season cupcake is a joke. Everyone's in the thick of a playoff hunt. Last year, Oregon was playing their 8th straight game of the season at Camp Randall. In November, Alabama was playing Mercer. Okay, that aspect of SEC scheduling and their general, not all the time, but I've seen it a lot over the year. Nick Saban never played true non-conference road games. Bama did play one last year at Wisconsin. I commend them for that. When was the last time Alabama came and played a game out west in a non-postseason environment? I actually don't know the answer, but I can't remember what. They haven't played USC or UCLA or Oregon or Washington State or Oregon State. They never played any of those teams coming all the way out there because they like to keep it regional, not have, big travel there and such. So the preseason rankings do matter. I do think the SEC, Michigan is overvalued in the Big Ten. Michigan being 14 is brand bias, but the SEC gets a lot of brand bias. Oklahoma and Florida have no business being preseason top 20 teams. You want to argue top 25? Fine. Top 20? Give me a break. Give me an absolute break. And I do agree that preseason rankings alter perception, and then the SEC uses that to say, well, our 9-3 teams should get in because our conference schedule is just so tough. This is the same conference that went 0-2 against USC, who was a 500 team in the Big Ten. Texas A&M, LSU, they were good teams last year in the SEC. They both lost to USC. And USC had different quarterbacks in each of those games. So, yeah, preseason rankings matter, and it does help fuel the SEC's agenda and desire. But I tell you what, if they miss the national title game again this season, we're just going to keep having the conversation over and over about, hey, should we? The SEC might still be really good, but we need to look at them differently. I feel that way now. So, yeah, I'll give you an 8.5 on Spencer's scale of agreement there. So, let's wrap with a little trivia. My favorite segment of every show. Chip Kelly does have the highest win percentage of all time. The guy who sent me the trivia clue said, my apologies, it was technically Chip Kelly. There were 2 coaches with a 1,000 win percentage, and that is Cal Young, first head coach of the Ducks, coached 1 game to a win. And there was Percy Benson, who won the games he coached, both as members of the Webfoots. I made a brain error in your question, but you were right in your first thought. You did well to throw me off. I let you throw me off by saying it's not who you think it is. I guess who I should have thought it was Lanning, and then might have gone to the right answer of Chip Kelly. But anyway, Chip Kelly is the highest win percentage of all time. Dan Lanning could change that this year. If he has 11-1, 12-0 this year, yeah, that could be the case. All right, today's trivia question. Zach from Illinois here with a trivia question for you. Which NFL franchise has drafted the most Oregon Ducks throughout history with 35 total players drafted? Oh, okay. Well, let's try and whittle this down. So, I got a 1 out of 32 chance at least. I know it's not the Seahawks because I'm a diehard Hawks fan. We have not had, every time an Oregon Duck is on the roster, my brother and I and our buddy who's an Oregon fan always text each other like, look, an Oregon guy's on the roster. So let's rule that one out. 35 players? Man, there was a stretch there where a lot of Ducks seemed to be going to the Eagles in the Chip Kelly era. Oh, man, I don't even know how to start thinking about it. This is tough. This is a tough one. Like on a Jeopardy board, this is a double Jeopardy $2,000 clue. Maybe $1,600, but yeah, this is a toughie. Could easily be a triple stumper. And of course, you're trying to just get a single stumper with me. So 35 of all time. Well, I don't even have a team that's popping in my mind that's like way above the other ones. Like, I do keep coming back to the 49ers. I mean, they drafted Defoe, Eric Armstead, Diamador Lenore. Oh, they didn't actually draft Mike Walter back in the day. He got drafted by the Cowboys initially, but he played for the 49ers. That's a tough one, man. That is a tough one. 35 total players. Where do Oregon players just keep getting drafted? Not the Raiders, except for the one. My everydayers are going to laugh at that. All right, Spencer, come up with a guess. I'm going with the Patriots. I'm gonna go with the Patriots. Nope, I'm gonna go 49ers. I'm just gonna go 49ers. West Coast connection. I don't think it would be the Chargers. I don't think it would be the Rams. Definitely not the Seahawks. I was thinking Patriots because they had LeGarrette Blount, Patrick Chung, guys for a while. But yeah, give me the 49ers. Curious to see what the answer to this one is, though. I've got about a 1 in 31 chance of getting that right. I know it's not the Seahawks. I'm 99% sure it's not the Seahawks. So that part of the answer will be right. But 49ers, we'll see. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.